857th meeting of the Transport and Infrastructure Committee meeting. I'd like to welcome all committee members and a couple of guests. So we've got Councillor Curtis and Councillor Martin that's joined us today. So welcome along. First of all, we'll get started with attendance and apologies. I have got an apology for Councillor Peter Young, who's had some travel problems. So I'm happy to move a apology. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Gates. All in favour? Carry. Leave of absence nil. Confirmation of previous minutes. Do we have a mover? Councillor Marshall, second to Councillor Gates. All in favour? Carry. Any conflict declarations? Nil. We've got two items that start today, 5.1 and 6.2. I'm going to unstar 6.2 at this stage. Is there any questions in relation to 5.1? Sorry? Councillor Martin would like to say a couple of words. 6.2. So Infrastructure Gold Coast for planning schedule, I move 5.1. Do I have a second to Councillor Tozer? All in favour? Carry. Six point one, Intelligent Transport System in Transport Operations. We've got a presentation on this, Michael. So I think we've got Phil, Renee and Duncan.
There we go. Through the chair, good afternoon, councillors. My name is Phil Calfs. Today I'll be painting a picture of what Intelligent Transport Systems is and how the city is using it to improve the way our transport network operates. This update builds on previous resolutions and reflects both current deployments and future directions aligned with our city's strategic objectives. How do I change? Sorry, Chair. How do I change slide? There we go. Sorry, clicker. I would like to start by saying ITS is really an umbrella term. It refers to the use of technology and information to manage traffic and improve safety across the transport network. What it does is simple, yet powerful. As shown in the wheel, ITS brings together a range of tools that helps us get more out of what we have. It leverages technology to maximize the life and performance of assets, helping people move around the network safely and efficiently. Here on the Gold Coast, we've come a long way, from basic traffic lights connected by copper wires to a fully digital, city-wide network that helps us monitor, adjust, and respond in real time. ITS gives us visibility of what's happening on the road, both now and over time, thanks to data and ongoing reporting. And by understanding what ITS is and how it works, we can better see the value it brings and why it's worth investing in supporting safer, smoother journeys. So now we know what ITS is and what it does. The next question is, how does it fit into the bigger picture? The Gold Coast Transport Strategy 2031 Midlife Review identified ITS as a key enabler at the city. This becomes clear when we look at the strategies supporting modal plans, such as the Road Network Plan, Freight Plan, and Road Safety Plan, and the specific actions ITS enables, like real-time information from CCTV, optimization of traffic signals, and freight routes, and faster incident detection. And whilst this slide highlights the city's strategic position, it's important to note our ITS approach is also aligned with broader state and national frameworks like Vision Zero. So it's not just a set of smart devices. It's a strategic investment that helps us deliver safer, more connected, and more sustainable transport for our city. So let's talk about what brings all of our ITS technology together. At the heart of it is Streams, our central ITS management platform. Also used by the Department of Transport and Main Roads, Streams allows traffic signals to be coordinated between local and state-controlled roads as part of a one-network approach. The map on the right is a screenshot that was taken from Streams and shows traffic lights and cameras based on the Health and Knowledge Precinct, providing live visibility of the transport network. This view allows operators to monitor traffic, adjust signals, and respond to incidences in real time across the city. On the left is an example of an intersection operating in Streams, running a simple three-phase arrangement. A phase refers to a set of traffic movements that receive a green light at the same time. Bringing these two concepts together into a working example, we have emergency vehicle priority, where Streams detects an approaching emergency vehicle and changes phases to help it move through safely and without delay. Of course, with over 300 signalized intersections managed by the city, the system only works if the right infrastructure is in place on the ground. And here's what that looks like. Shown are some examples of the on-site signalized intersection equipment we use to keep everything operating safely and smoothly. From signal controllers to communication hardware, our roads are packed with technology, including 195 traffic CCTV cameras across the network. Next are the eyes of the intersection, detection. Detection is critical. It's how our intersection knows when vehicles approach. To do this, we mainly use induction loops, wires in the pavement that detect vehicles as they pass over. However, some sites also use radar sensors, and at one location at Stanmore Road, a weigh-in-motion system is used to provide signal priority for heavy vehicles. Stepping away from vehicles, ITS also supports active transport. Examples include active transport counters, pedestrian countdown timers, and puff-in crossings that adjust signal timings to walking speed. Safety is a key driver for ITS investment. Technologies like speed awareness devices, enhanced school zone signage, and flood cameras all help to reduce risk. During the February 2022 floods, real-time CCTV provided early visibility and enabled quick intervention, showing how ITS supports dynamic, not just reactive network management. ITS also helps to keep people informed. Message signs, speed-activated warnings, and automated road closures guide and empower road users to make informed decisions. Building on how ITS technologies work individually, integrating them delivers new insights. Shown is an example of ITS tackling a key safety challenge at signalized intersections, being filter right turns. Austroads has previously reported a 90% increase in crash risk where right turn arrows are missing, with a 39% of serious crashes linked to this filter right turn movement. Using CCTV, speeds, volumes, and crash history, we identified, evaluated, and prioritized 100 high-risk intersections based on impact and safety, with almost 3/4 of these now removed. This approach has cut crash risk significantly while minimizing network impact. We are also preparing for what's next. In partnership with Toyota and the state government, we will be piloting cooperative vehicle technology in Broadbeach. Retrofitted roadside units and CCTV video analytics works together to detect vulnerable road users and send live alerts to connected vehicles. Essentially, the technology tells vehicles when there is a potential safety issue at the intersection via open communication standards. The project aims to be operational ahead of the 2025 ITS Australia Summit to be held in November at the Convention and Exhibition Centre. It's an early step towards safer automation, smarter vehicle infrastructure communication. Globally, ITS is accelerating. Cities are investing in smart systems, connected vehicles, and integrated data. Australia's agenda reflects this shift with a focus on cooperative technology, optimizing what we have, and strong leadership. ITS is not just about chasing innovation, though. It's about practical, sustainable, scalable solutions that address real challenges and meet growing community expectations. To stay ahead, the next step is to develop a dedicated ITS strategy. This will aim to provide a clear framework for prioritizing technology, investments, strengthening our network resilience, engaging the community, and tracking results, delivering real value and staying ahead of emerging challenges for a safer, smoother journey. Thank you. That's the end of the presentation.
Phil, how would this ITS help in relation to where we've got light rail? And obviously we've got a lot of challenging interactions with a lot of the off-roads. Pacific Fair is a perfect example, the intersection there at Margaret Ave. Will this provide some better solutions in that space? Considering light rail has right-of-way, we see a lot of, particularly through Margaret Avenue, congestions because of light rail. Will this be able to assist in that space?
So I guess it's a bit of a two-part, through the chair. It's a bit of a two-part question. Light rail actually has an extensive amount of ITS surrounding it already. So as I said, ITS is an umbrella term. There are certain devices, technology that can be installed to improve some of the efficiency. But for the most part, there is already a lot of technology there. It's just how we apply it.
So in some of those cases, not necessarily the technology right round. So let's think of the Broadbeach State School. Would that technology now be extended to streets back off the highway?
Yes, there are.
Councillor Hamill.
Thank you, Chair. I was interested, how extensively do we use radar loops to help with issues of congestion around schools? So intersections that for most of the 24 hours work perfectly, and then schools in the morning and afternoon are busy because of all the school traffic. How many intersections have we installed radar loops out to help with that problem?
Yep. Through the chair. So induction loops are our most common one, but radars are certainly used, more so with construction works before loops are actually cut into the pavement. Mm-hmm. There is some good evidence to show that it does help with that and does improve some of the school timings.
Chair, a second question if I could. The use of the CCTV that's on the flood monitoring stations, I was interested, like we fairly aggressively expanded that network over the last couple of years. Do we have any kind of results or data to show how many people accessed that information during the recent Cyclone Alfred event?
Yep, through the chair. So currently all our traffic CCTV cameras are on the state network, which is ironically called the ITS network. That is a closed network, not available to the public. Currently, I think we have 46 dedicated flood cameras that is extensively used by operators and the DEMC. There is a project, I believe that's mentioned in the report, where we are looking at trying to make this more efficient with how we detect floods and get that message out to the community.
Yeah, which, Chair, took me to where I was looking with the next part what is the next iteration of using this information to help make more informed decisions for especially rural residents, that before they drive down the road to see that it's cut off, and instead of just a text warning saying there may be flooding in your area, getting to that not too hopefully far away idea of a real alert being sent to them to say, here's literally the live footage from that bridge 2 kilometres away, don't bother getting in your car. Do we see that in the not too distant future? That's the hope.
Through the chair, absolutely. I have had some early discussions about how we push this imagery to the public and make it available. There are some business rules that we still need to work through around sensitivity of images, especially when there's graphic things on screen. They are a bit lower and we don't want to be showing that to the public. But for flooded roads, absolutely. Yep.
Chair, what's the limitations in terms of connecting new intersections and roads into this? So do we have to have a certain quality of cabling available, and is that available everywhere in the city yet, or is that something that's progressing over time?
Through the chair, our fibre networks are always expanding. We're looking at installing better backbones to get them on there, but we do use cellular technology as well as the radio links as well, where we can effectively link two intersections together over a defined amount of distance if there's not telecommunications readily available.
And finally, Chair, I was interested, so you made the mention that there's manual intervention at the moment can be used. How predictive is this system, or what is the capability of the system in the future as more predictive analysis comes into play over it to make decisions on its own?
Yep, through the chair. There's nothing currently available, but in the works, Transmax are looking, the producer of streams is looking at integrating AI to make more informed and faster decisions automatically without manual intervention.
And sorry, Chair, a follow-up to that, is there work that we need to be doing as a city to be ready for that, or is that something we need to wait for the provider to come to us and say this is the kind of upgrades or system changes or things you may need to change to be able to implement that?
Through the chair, for the most part, the hardware should remain as is unless we move away from streams, but we would wait for the provider to tell us what we need. For the most part, it should just be upgrading software and firmware packages, not hardware.
Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Tozer.
I've got an intersection in Mudgeray near the showgrounds that actually is shared by a church and a childcare centre. Is there limitations with this technology when an intersection engages with something other than public property? Or is what's that process? Because I suppose what I'm getting at is on a Sunday, all the people leaving church line up quite a lot, and it creates some congestion. None of the other streets, as you would imagine, on a Sunday morning, the rest of the other streets are pretty quiet. But but is there limitations with it connecting to like a private property when we have a light that connects?
Yep. Through the chair. So there are instances where there are loops installed on private property through agreements, but in certain instances, that's where we would use radar technology as it's non-intrusive and can be set back.
Okay. So there's nothing technologically that impacts us being able to either have some sort of sensor to track whether the cars are queuing on private property. Nothing limiting that. Okay, cool.
Sorry, just through the chair. If you provide me the information around that intersection, what we could possibly look at is a time of day plan for those peaks on a Sunday, because it would just be operating isolated at the moment.
Yeah, it's only
so we
a
can
Sunday
definitely
morning,
analyse that in more detail and try and get some better outcomes.
Yeah, I'll send you an email. Thank you.
Councillor Neal.
Thanks, Chair. I can't remember the terminology in the report, but it pertains to upgraded signalisation at some intersections where there's pedestrian crossing and a turn left. I noticed in Kira where we've had an upgrade of signalisation there and it's a really good thing. And I hope it's going to be rolled out in a lot of the intersections. So when you're waiting to turn left, if no one's actually press the button to walk, there's no one walking across pedestrian crossing, the arrow will turn green straight away. Is that part of any signalisation where there's pedestrian crossing now when we upgrade?
Through the chair, if I've understood you right, that is part of the puffin crossings or smart crossings.
Yeah.
Where if there's a radar that looks at the pedestrian crossing, and if it does not detect any objects, it cuts it short to give time back to the vehicles.
It works extremely well, especially when there's a crossing where it does get congested. Well, you've only got one lane and you've got all these cars piling up behind you. It makes such a difference because if you're turning left and everyone wants to go straight ahead. So, yeah, I just wondered if that was part of all then when we start upgrading. Thanks.
Through the chair, I don't think it's part of a default upgrade, but there are 74 of these across the network.
Thank you.
Any more questions? Councillor Tozer.
Happy to
happy
move
to
the
move
item
it.
if that's okay.
Happy to move it?
Yep.
Councillor Tozer. I'm happy to second it. Did you want to talk to it?
No, only that it's awesome that we're using this sort of technology to help congestion in the city. There's lots of opportunity for us to do more with this sort of technology in lots of intersections. And as we roll out better fibre, we should be able to, see that improve performance. It's good.
And I'd just like to add that I think as a city we need to be definitely in this space to ensure that as we grow, we know the challenges of a growing city. So we need to ensure that our intersections and transport connectability is efficient, and modern technology, and also hopefully will help individuals make informed decisions moving forward to help get around the city in a timely manner. So I'll put the motion to you. All in favour? Carry.
Thank you.
Thank you. 6.2 I've only started. Fallen tree in Murloc Park.
Councillor Martin.
Sorry, Councillor Martin, you're not on the committee, but I'd like to hand it to you. And if
Thank you,
you'd like to make a
Chair.
few comments.
Just a few questions at risk of getting bobbed, but thank you. Just on reading the report, it talks about this cottonwood tree, the hibiscus tree, that naturally it has long limbs and they support the tree, but our urban environment, we remove them for a range of reasons. So just seeking the view of officers around that practice. Does that practice need reviewing if that inherently weakens the tree, or just interested in that urban trimming process?
So through the chair, look, there would be no pruning that our city arborists do that would structurally compromise a tree. First and foremost, that's par for the course. But what we do with all urban park trees is we try to, in the first years of their life, to formative prune them so that they grow up in a manner that provides adequate view lines and then provide adequate shade to them. So the early years is where trees like cottonwoods really need that high focus on getting the formative pruning so that they provide that shade in a manner that doesn't structurally compromise. If there was a tree that didn't get that formative pruning in its early years, and it didn't have that sort of amenity aspect that we were looking to achieve, we would not compromise the structural integrity of a tree, to achieve that. Okay, so those queries around us impacting the tree's structural integrity are against what we would do as arborists. Yeah.
Thank you. And so the comment in the lead petitioner talked about that a request to trim the top-heavy tree, and I note that officers couldn't locate that, but just more interested in any assessment if we are trimming underneath and that structural integrity is there. Does the city go ahead and lop or stop a top-heavy tree? How does that work?
No, through the chair, as per my previous point, the arborists take a look at the health of the tree overall, and they will only prune where it contributes to the amenity and for its future health. We would never prune to compromise itself. So,
yeah, thank you. Just interested, obviously, thanks to officers. I know this seems small, but it was very important to the community for a range of reasons on that waterside area there of Tally Creek. The removal is recommended. Reinstatement or replanting, but I was just interested in what that replanting might look like. Like, how does the city take a mature tree? Can a mature tree or a similar tree be replaced, or how is that assessment undertaken?
Yeah, through the chair. So what we talk about in the report is that there's a subsequent the tree would have been impacted by a future project to update the revetment wall along there, and during those works we would scope out the appropriate species to offset any loss of trees. It may not be the only tree that's lost through that, but hopefully we always try and retain every tree we can in especially ones that are as significant as this one. But where we do identify offsets, we look for the correct species. We look at the placement and spacing so that we ensure that we get adequate grass growth and people can recreate under that tree into the future. So that all that will be done as part of the future revetment wall works.
Thank you, Chair. I didn't have any other questions, but you would permit.
Any other questions? Okay. So I've got a slight change because from Councillor Martin. We're going to bring it up. It's just a small little one that the Divisional Council be consulted on the proposed replacement tree planting plan. What was that?
Easy.
Do I have a seconder?
Yes.
Councillor Tozer, any questions?
Does Councillor Hamill want that amendment?
I missed the amendment.
The amendment was that you funded
Yeah.
from law, but we're not
You're
going to.
comfortable?
That's great.
Would anyone like to talk to it? I know you're not on the committee, but I'm happy for you to quickly talk.
Thank you for officers for trying firstly to see whether it could be retained. I understand around safety and the future works. I mean, the revetment wall that's coming in, it would have been impacted anyway, but I think this particular species is really good to know because they are very popular. I think the broadleaf and the shade and maybe this particular location is very popular in the community and whole of city, because I think the petitioners there, as far as Pimpamar, have obviously signed this petition. So it's of interest to the many users that go to the park, not those just that live in there. So thank you for running through that. I understand we want to be conservative, the ratepayer, but equally I'm really keen to make sure that we have a suitable replacement so we get that amenity and that shade, and that's not going to take too long to be reinstated. So thank you for the change.
No problems. I'll put it to you. All in favour? Against? Super majority.
Against with a smile.
Thank you. We'll now move to 6.3, the Green Mountain Headland Revitalisation Project.
Who's this?
Chloe is, I think, going to be presenting. I think you're here, Ross. Green Mountain Headland. Yep, comfortable.
Useful life and was being impacted by tree roots, and Michael and Ross have worked together to establish that there can be other methods used to retain it, and it was in an isolated part of Division 3 and the community is so grateful, so thank you.
Thanks, Ross. Okay, Ross.
Yep. So thank you, Chair and Councillors. I will note there is a slight change to the presentation that you printed. We've just merged the first 2 pages simply because my name was printed incorrectly or my title was printed incorrectly, and this is a better photo. So that's it. So thank you for the opportunity to introduce the Greenmount Headland and Renewal Revitalisation Project. We think this is a particularly noteworthy project to present to you for several reasons. The first is its integrated infrastructure planning approach. So this project exemplifies the benefits of our new all-in-one infrastructure department model. It highlights how integrated planning and a strong focus on lifecycle asset management can deliver a more cohesive and sustainable outcomes. Second, it's community-centred design. It reflects our newfound commitment to genuine community consultation. The planning and design of this open space project has been shaped by community input to ensure its alignment with the local values and expectations. And third, this project has recently passed Gate 2 of the new P3M project governance framework. This means we've successfully completed phases 1 and 2 of planning and concept design work, and we now have a clearly defined scope, an approved budget, and delivery timeframes. It's one of the first major open space projects to progress through this new framework from inception. I'd like to acknowledge the excellent work that my colleague Chloe has done, leading the planning of this project from the very start. Her dedication has been instrumental in achieving the best possible outcomes for the community, and I'll now hand over to Chloe to take you through the details of this project.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Ross, for that introduction. As Ross mentioned, I'm here today to talk about the Green Mountain Headland Revitalisation Project and the journey so far. Green Mountain Headland is right in the heart of one of our most popular beach areas on the Gold Coast. With over 3 million visitors and $130 million spent in beach-related spending in 2022. It sits within the World Surfing Reserve and is home to the iconic Superbank and hosts prestigious global events such as the World Surf League. But despite its global status, the infrastructure on the headland isn't keeping up. The current assets are ageing, expensive to maintain, and don't meet today or tomorrow's needs. I've brought along a few images today just to remind us of how special and beautiful this area is. From the crystal clear waters and basalt boulders to the framing pandanus trees and panoramic views of our city skyline. The natural beauty of this place is stunning. It is perfectly positioned in the middle of the Superbank, making it one of the best spots to watch surfers and ocean activities. However, when you turn your gaze from nature to infrastructure, the story changes. That's the reaction I was hoping for. Yeah. Good. From a passerby's perspective, the area appears neglected. Despite regular maintenance, leaf litter often accumulates on the walkway by day's end. The existing path design is outdated with steep gradients, narrow sections, poor lighting and slippery surfaces. From an asset management perspective, we see global geotechnical instability, decaying platforms, frequent closures and increasing safety risks. The map here shows the scope of the project. The areas highlighted in red were the original assets to be renewed. Each coloured polygon represents an asset that also needs to be renewed by different departments, including beaches, parks, natural areas and transport. In the past, a project like this might have been split across 4 or 5 smaller jobs, each delivered separately with mismatched timelines and varying design languages. But thanks to the recent organisational restructure, we can now collectively work under the Open Spaces asset team. This streamlining is a huge win and it means better coordination, fewer construction disruptions and a single unified design that serves the community as a whole. From the beginning, we were after an integrated design, inspired by coastal boardwalks like the one on the top right there, Noosa Boardwalk. We also ensured that the project aligned closely with delivering our coastal lifestyle strategy outcomes by improving access, connectivity, coastal experience and enhancing our natural beauty. Historically, renewal projects have followed an inform-only model with the community, meaning we'd simply tell them what's happening, but not this time. Given the site's popularity and significance, we knew we had to do things differently. The Southern Gold Coast community is deeply proud of its natural character, and rightly so. So from the outset, we committed to bringing them along the journey with us. In the first round of engagement to understand user sentiment, we received over 200 responses, with clear community priorities emerging: improve amenity, protect the natural look and feel, and most importantly, improve safety from e-bikes and fast movers and for nighttime walkers. We took this feedback and integrated it with internal council insights to shape a set of shared design objectives. These informed the multi-criteria analysis, known as an MCA, which helped us determine the best path forward. Pardon the pun. The MCA showed strong support for a fundamentally raised passive travel boardwalk made of natural yet low maintenance material. Sorry, just our screens that's fine. A solution that ticked all 3 of the community's top boxes, especially when compared to a more rigid active travel design, such as the one on the right-hand side you can see. With wide concrete paths and fast-moving e-bikes, large safety rails and e-scooters zooming around, their choice was clear. That option simply didn't align with the community nor the councillors' values. With the fundamental design confirmed, we started building our concept design. Whilst the project had some non-negotiables, such as path width, spatial constraints, environmental impacts and maintenance standards, there were some negotiables that we wanted the community to have input on. So we created 3 precincts, which you can see in the image on the left in the pink circles. And we asked them to vote on options A or B within each of these precincts. We also asked what artwork and stories they would like to see upon the headland to help us shape our future art briefs. The engagement was excellent for a project of this size. We received over 600 survey responses, and through 3 community pop-ups attended by Councillor Gail O'Neill, we held over 360 conversations with locals. We also did letterbox drops, brochure distribution, and held ongoing meetings with our councillor and the Greenmount Surf Club to ensure we brought them along the journey. These community votes directly shaped our final concept design. While some concerns were raised, such as misconceptions that the visual renders looked like concrete paths, which many disliked, but these misconceptions only reinstated that we were on the right path. Overall, we received overwhelmingly positive feedback, and I believe a key reason for this was our commitment to genuinely engaging with our community and allowing them to make tangible differences in the project. So I'll just point out the bottom section there is those 3 precincts that were in the pink circles, and where there's a yellow trophy symbol is the option that was voted by the community. Yep.
So can we just go back to that slide?
Oh.
No, sorry, that one there. So I'm just trying to get my head around the differences in each of them. On precinct 3, the difference is that they've got that shade bits. Option B has shade on the thing and the other one doesn't. Am I reading that correctly? Is that the only major difference?
Yes. So in precinct 1, the stairs were either going to the left or the right, which you can see there between those two. And then precinct 2, the stairs either wrap closer to the headland or follow the existing alignment of the stairs, and they jut out a little bit more with the current standards. And precinct 3, there's shading up the top in option A, but not down the bottom. And in option B, there's shading in both up the top and on the main viewing platform.
And in each of them, when you say online and face to face, it's just that's the total responses favouring the options. Am I reading that?
Yes.
Yeah, cool. Sorry, seems straightforward, but I thought I'd better check. Okay, cool. Thank you. Sorry.
Before locking in materials for the final concept, we did our due diligence by having our maintenance, painting and project team meet with our northerly neighbours. We tracked down and met with Grant Calder, the Noosa Boardwalk architect, the project manager Adam Britton and Noosa's council maintenance team, who talked us through the award-winning barefoot-friendly Noosa Boardwalk, which is the photo in the middle there. Our teams were particularly impressed by the Accoya timber decking. It has been in place for over 6 years and requires no painting, oiling or staining. It's only needed a single pressure wash in that time. Their design is unique in also deterring and slowing down bike riders through natural curves and meanders. We then met with Sunshine Coast Council, where we saw how effective fibre reinforced polymer, known as FRP, structures can be in coastal environments. Durable, low maintenance and corrosion resistant. These site visits fast-tracked our design and highlighted opportunities to improve both maintenance, efficiency and community experience. These insights have fed directly into our whole of life assessment, resulting in a low maintenance Accoya timber as the decking material, FRP as a substructure, a raised boardwalk to improve leaf litter accumulation and reduce cleaning, independent footings for improved geotechnical stability. So without holding it back any further, I'll show you some snippets of the final concept. So keep in mind these renders look completely finalised, but these just give you a really good understanding of what is to come and what we can expect around the headland. And we'll still go through our design phases following this as well. So on the left, you're positioned more at the Greenmount Surf Club area and you're heading around to the south of the headland. So this is that entry point tying into the existing toilet block. In the middle is that set of stairs that the community had the preference for, which wraps closer to the headland. And on the right-hand side is the main viewing deck with shading both at the top and the bottom. Yep.
Councillor Gates. Yep.
Thank you. Through the chair, on page 61 of our report, the third photograph is very different from that, and I was worried that the shade was going to inhibit, if you look at the report on page 61, that the shade was going to inhibit the view, but it's quite different. There is no rail.
Yep.
Yeah, that photo.
Through the chair. Those photos, because it was printed as PDF, this came up as an animation, so it would show you these photos just here, now that I've just gone to. Yeah.
That's not going to be how it is it?
Yes, so this is the alignment so far, yes.
Well, what's the one we've just looked at that was headed final concept design?
This.
That.
Through the chair. Yeah, so the one on the right-hand side is obviously more of an aerial bird's eye shot. And then these images are showing from a passerby's perspective. So as you're walking along, your view isn't inhibited through that shading shelter. And above, you can look past it over to the superbank.
Oh, I couldn't see that fence line on the other perspective.
Through the chair. If you go to the other slide, I think the one's actually, and the perspective's not perfect because it's just a render, but one's a view down from the top deck, and obviously in that section you're talking to, Councillor Gates,
there's a second landing.
Does look a little bit different, but yeah,
there's a second landing, so that image on the right is from that second landing, and so it was to illustrate that those shade structures over the main are not really inhibiting too badly the views. Yeah.
Can I ask a question about
that? Councillor O'Neill, and we'll come to Tosa.
Yeah, and thanks, Chloe. And you know that I've actually spoken about these shade structures as well, because I think that because it's not we haven't got to detailed planning yet, probably one shade would be, my opinion is, but that we do, and it's come back with all the feedback that they do want shade. But I think having individuals like that is really strange. I would prefer, and I've told you this, I would prefer just one shade structure, and certainly keeping the view line still there. And I think that you're going to be looking at that. Yep.
Through the chair, exactly right. Yep, we'll be taking all that into consideration in our preliminary design.
Councillor Tosa?
Yeah, my feedback was just that the steps up behind the shade structures, depending on the height of those shade structures, the view will be impeded for those people sitting. I appreciate you don't want that to happen, but I think once people of varying heights sit on those things, depending on where the surfing's actually happening, those shade structures might partially block the view, depending on how wide the shade bit is. Anyway, all good. It still looks really great.
Councillor Martin.
Thanks, Chair. Just a question on the Akoya timber. Have we ever used that in the city before, or is it a brand new sort of timber product to the city?
Through the chair, glad you asked. This would have been the first time that we would have used it. It's the first time we've considered it in a major project especially. But because we were so impressed with it, we've now started to install it onto our beach platforms as well as a trial, but also just because we believe it's going to really be beneficial for our maintenance team.
Sorry, one more, Chair. I'm sure you would, and it's early days, but during surfing events, would this be constructed so that, if it was full of crowds, that it could hold that weight? Think WSL, obviously.
Through the chair, that has definitely been considered crowd loading.
Keep going, please. Thank you. Yep, Councillor.
Chloe, just because you have mentioned about the surface that you're intending to use would maybe deter bikes from going around there. At the moment, there is signs up, asking cyclists to dismount. Is there have you considered any other measures to stop bikes, and especially e-bikes, going around there? Because I know, Councillor Martin, you probably know about this. You're getting a lot of complaints about bikes on the new Tarabora walkway.
Funny you should mention that, because that new shared path, there's still old signage for dismount, but it is a shared path. So as I understand it, it is not a dismount area, but I am really interested around some pathways that we have. We have a lot of pedestrians. We're limiting to bikes or dismounting if they are wide enough to be a designated shared path.
Through the chair, we will continue to have this as a dismount. You can walk your wheels around the headland, which is what it is currently. And we're also working to have an active travel diversion that runs in a street parallel to divert the traffic earlier on, so that people are not as inclined to sort of follow around the headland, so that there is another easier way to get around. There will also be integrated landscaping to try and push people towards that diversion, just make it safer for the community around that headland.
Okay, thank you.
So what's next? We will soon complete our 60% preliminary design. From there, it will move through approvals, detailed design, and then out to tender for construction, which is scheduled in the short to mid-term. This project has been a huge collaboration across departments with the community, alongside our local councillor and our industry peers. I truly believe that the success we've had so far is thanks to that approach, and it's shaping a headland that will serve and inspire generations to come. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Chloe. Questions? More questions? Councillor O'Neill.
One more question, Chloe. And you saw a mention of it there in the existing infrastructure there, and it's the word waterfall. Can you explain, and certainly for anybody viewing, what you mean by the waterfall, its current status, and going forward what we can do? Thanks.
Through the chair. The waterfall is an existing asset that's been there since the early 80s and was decommissioned in the 2000s. It has been sitting there on that headland since then, and it will be considered in the design. And at the moment, it's acting like a really large retaining wall for that headland, which is great. We've had an assessment done on it, and it's in a really good state as well. So we'll be including that into our design, and also capitalising on the viewpoints that are already available at the top of that waterfall, and having a new viewing platform for the community there.
But no active waterfall?
Correct, no active waterfall.
Councillor Martin.
Just one final one, Chair. Just back on the bikes and the dismounting, and we know that we've got areas where perhaps riders don't dismount. I've previously looked into, the gates, the swing gates, which contradict the DDA compliance. Is there any measures that might still be DDA compliant, have the width, but have chicanes or gates that will kind of slow them right down, that might be integrated in this, or that we could use on similar pathways?
Through the chair, that will be trialled at this location in front of the Greenmount Surf Club, just before you get to the surf club. That will be where the diversion is, and that will be where this sort of like softer landscaping, so like garden beds that extend out that you can't really ride around, that will deter bike riders going around, and they'll get them onto the active travel path. We considered kissing gates here, those ones that are like at the Burleigh Headland, but because this pathway is so well used, especially by every time I've been there's been someone on a mobility scooter, it would just really inhibit the all ability access around that headland.
Councillor Hamill.
Chair, could I just confirm that at the start we were told this project's fully funded?
Sorry,
can you repeat that again?
This project, did you say at the start, Ross, this project's fully funded?
Yeah, so through the chair, this project is in our 4-year capital works, but as we all know, years 2, 3 and 4, we've got to come back with our revised program. So yes, there's funding identified, but obviously only year 1 is for all capital works.
Understood. Yeah. So you'll now go through the 60% design process, which will probably firm up your pricing and what level of contingency you need. Yeah. And then, so the final funding decision on this would be part of next year's budget?
Yeah, so through the chair, all construction activities and detailed design funding is in future financial years. Yeah.
Chair, the second question on that, acknowledging the engineering change to individual peers, we're talking about a lot of drilling into the side of this. So, are we familiar with, I don't know if we've tackled a project this size and that kind of area, but a contractor that's going to do that work, it's going to be hard for them to give a fairly fixed price. Is there going to be a fairly high level of contingency needed, especially in that part of the construction? Because until they get in there and start drilling, it's going to be pretty unknown.
Through the chair, I think this next phase, as we go into stage 3, obviously we'll look at more geotech investigations and understand risk, and then whatever form of contract, we'll obviously need to come up with a mechanism that balances risk with cost exposure to the city. But yeah, that certainly will be a key consideration as we go through, particularly in methodology and also how we allocate contingency in form of contract.
Yeah. Chair, the last question I had, Chloe made the point very strongly about the positives that have come from it being delivered through this kind of program by it being one project from different areas delivered in one thing. Do we have an idea of what the cost savings to ratepayers would look like because of taking that approach?
Through the chair, that hasn't been calculated, but it's something that we can take on notice.
So, Chair, appreciating that might be difficult to actually put a quantifiable figure to, but I think that would be worthwhile because this is the new way of doing things, and to have an idea of what savings that has created, probably with a fairly big plus or minus for the reliability of it. But I think that would be good when we get to the next stage to understand the impact of that, because it will be very real. That would be a good thing to have.
Through the chair, just on that, Councillor Hamill, I think as much as the values there about the financial savings, the disruption minimisation is probably as big a win for the community as the financial saving.
Councillor O'Neill, would you like to move it? Do I have a seconder? Councillor Tozer, would you like to talk to it, Councillor?
To say I'm excited about this project is probably the huge understatement. For the last 10 years, I've seen a lot of maintenance work happen around the headland, but I've seen it also, start to become in a very bad state. And as we've heard from Chloe, the visitation is enormous around that area, and the views from the headland are just spectacular. The headland, Greenmount Headland, is one of our most beautiful natural assets, and people want to walk around it. They want to sit there and view the ocean. They want to look over to Surfers Paradise. Best way to view Surfers Paradise is from Greenmount Headland. I applaud the work that the project team have put in to date, especially sourcing a product like Acquia. I think that'll be fantastic. I mean, I don't know how many of you have worked around Noosa Headland, but it is a great asset there, and I think the low maintenance is a real coup. I think having extended viewing platforms is great because they are limited at the moment. It is the headland is natural, so leaf litter is natural, and that will still be there, but we just have to manage that maintenance-wise. But I'm just so excited about this project, and I think that we've covered off on every bit of feedback that came back and have delivered exactly what everybody wants, and I don't think I've had more positive feedback about a project in Division 14, and we're keeping it very, very natural, as it should be. It's our natural asset. So well done, team, and let's hope it just progresses the way it should and in a timely manner. That would be great. Thank you.
Does anyone want to speak for? Against? I'll put the motion to you. All in favour? Carry.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, Chloe.
Chair, my apologies. I'm going to have to leave the meeting.
Yep.
I'll be back maybe in half an hour if you're still going.
No problem. So we'll move to 6 points of your note, Councillor Hamill. Please, 1355. 6.4 mowing and weed spraying contract update. Stephen and Brodie. I think Dominic might be here as well. So, thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair and Councillors. Just here today to give you an update on the mowing contract and the spraying contract that we talked to you about last year and how we've progressed. How do I get this to? This one. Just to give you an overrun of what we raised last year, it's a 3-year contract with a 1+1. The area covered by this contract is 35 million square metres, or 35.5 square kilometres, and it's over 8,620 sites. This doesn't include sports fields or high-profile areas that our internal crews undertake, which adds about another 3.3 million square metres of grass. Most of the area is undertaken on fortnightly cycles during the growth months, probably from October through to May, And there are some sections in the rural roads which are undertaken 12 times a year. Various sizes of equipment are used on the different platforms and the different locations across the city. Last year we talked about the mowing performance criteria and monitoring. So we now actually, one of the things we talked about last year was having the residential complaints included as part of the inspections where previously they weren't. We also have inspection score sites from 1 to 5. 3 or less is considered a fail on that site, and we will ask the contractors to revisit the site. And they will have 2 days to rectify. If they don't rectify, it'll be a failed site. Their allowable breach percentage for failed sites is 3% of the inspected areas. So if we do 100 areas of inspection and they fail 3 sites and don't go back and rectify them, then it's a breach and they'll get a 10% penalty on the total portion, not just the inspected sites.
Councillor Tozer.
So in relation to the complaints and the sites, is there obviously each of us get complaints about mowing all the time, and we call you directly, normally Michael, and say, "Oh, someone's complaining." Is there any way we can reconcile what we get as complaints compared to other divisions? Is that something we can do confidentially, just so whether we know whether there's someone actually who's being unreasonable in our division compared to someone else's division?
I could give you a list of those unreasonable through the chair, Councillor.
I'm not trying to name and shame anyone. I suppose what I'm trying to work out is obviously it's a burden of work on you every time someone complains, but it'd be good to have a bit of reference point to say, well, if I'm getting 20 complaints a year, is that comparable to Councillor Gates, who's getting 140 complaints a year or something like that?
Through you, Chair, the complaints vary from someone ringing on Tuesday morning at 8 o'clock saying, where are the mowers because it's been 2 weeks since you mowed it last time.
That doesn't count as a complaint.
Compared to seed head,
my fence.
Or it could even be the mowers went through and they sprayed grass on my car. So it's a variety of things, and we could probably break it up into divisions, but we'll talk about complaints shortly further in the presentation.
Sorry, thank you. Sorry.
No, you're right.
Thanks, Michael.
Yeah, I get that.
Through you, Chair, the previous contract, this was just a comparison of last year's, the previous contract and the new contract, some of the highlights. Previously, as I've mentioned, customer queries and complaints were not counted as part of the compliance KPI. They are now included as part of the compliance KPI. So previously, if we got a complaint, it wouldn't be dealt with the same way as a routine inspection. Now those complaints are actually inspected as would the routine inspections being done. Previously, if a customer complained, it wasn't necessarily deemed non-compliant, and the contractor had 7 days to make good. And one of the problems with that was if it was coming to the end of the cycle, say 3 days to go in that cycle, and we had a customer complaint, and we went back to them, they'd say, "Oh, we'll get it in the next cycle." So we've changed that to make them comply within the cycle. Previously, we had wet signs. They were optional. Now we've actually made the placement of wet signs in wet areas compulsory. So if they say that we didn't do this area because it was wet, if they don't actually have a wet sign up, then that is actually deemed as a failed site. So we're trying to make sure that the general public know why we're not actually mowing that site at that time. Our wet sites are still paid in full, but previously they were paid in full. And with some of the rainfall data, for instance, in 2021-22, we had 109 days of wet weather between October through to May. So we would have had probably 2 or 3 cycles where there was no mowing taking place in a particular area, and we have a lot of low-lying areas. What we've said in this contract and what we're enforcing is if you have 2 cycles where you haven't mowed, the 3rd cycle, irrespective of if it's too wet to mow, you must make an attempt to actually reduce the grass height, whether it's by whippersnipper or whatever method that they wish to use. Before and after photos of sites were not necessarily requested at last contract. They are now made. So if we ring up the contractor and say, can we have a before and after photos, they must produce those photos within a period of time. Previously, where the site was deemed wet, so if they started the cycle this week and we had rain today and they said it's too wet to mow that cycle, that area, we previously wouldn't have chased them up to come back. We would have said, if you can you come back? Now they actually have to make a serious attempt to get back to that site before the end of the cycle if they can. And we increased the staffing to align with the contract, which is, we've increased our grass inspectors from 2 to 3. We've also got 2 supervisors who actually monitor the north and south of the city, and they both share two portions each. That has been a real bonus for us because we can actually get on top of things straight away. Our portion improvements. So previously, in the previous contract, as per the slide, there were 10 individual portions. There's now 4. One of the reasons for doing that, just as a reminder through the chair, is that the smaller portions, when we would give them non-compliant, if they were non-compliant, we penalised them 10%. It might only be an area of, say, 1.2 million square metres at 1.5 cents a square metre. 10% of that is not much. Now the portions are of between 10 and 14 million square metres in some areas. If you hit them with a 10% penalty, it actually hurts them. So they're actually going back and doing the rectifications as required. It also gives them, I suppose, as a benefit as well, is that because now where the previous portions were scattered all over the city, so you might have someone doing Southport and then they're also doing Helensvale, and then they might be doing Oxenford. So where now we've got one big area, they can actually plan their works better and work from one point of commencement. The next thing we did was we actually made so the other improvements we've done is obviously the resident complaints are now part of the KPIs. The mowing inspectors, we've increased their rate of inspections from 7% to 10% by having those 3 inspectors, and by having the larger portions, they can actually focus on their own areas rather than going backwards and forwards. We've actually reduced the risk to the city by having 4 contractors instead of 3. So if one contractor pulled the pin, we believe that with the other 3 contractors, we'd be able to make up that area that they did. A few larger portions equals larger performance penalties. Wet area signage and the KPIs, and they've got 2 days to install them. Mower identification stickers. So one problem we would have is we would get a complaint. The mowers are doing 60 kilometres an hour through the parks. We'd say where? They'd say, oh, near this road. It was, do you know what sort of mower it was? Now they've got numbers that must be visible, so they can ring up and say it was in Smith Street and Southport, and it was number 52. We can look up who the contractor is, give that to the contractor, and he can actually find number 52. And one of the there are a lot of the complaints we get that the mower's speed, they're doing 60 to 90 kilometres an hour, if you believe some. The maximum speed, I believe, a Toro mower or even the mowers they use is about 22, 24 kilometres an hour, and that's if they've got the blades up and they're rolling down a hill. So the other thing we did have is we picked 15 locations where we have numerous complaints about dogs, dog parks, and the interaction with the mowers. So what we've done is we've actually installed signs specific to that, where we simply uncover the sign and say, we're going to mow the dog park, can you give us a period of time to go in and mow and remove your dogs? We won't be long, and that way that's actually reduced the complaints as well. We also set up a dashboard. So this dashboard is live that we use, and as you can see, the only bit of red on there is the number of percentage of failed sites that they've had over the last 12 months. And obviously none of them have hit 3. Lush Green have, but that's over the period of the time, so it wasn't necessarily on one cycle. And we've also had some problems with that particular contract because we had a large portion taken away from us when some of the land that we used to get them to mow was actually being sold off. So that one, we're working with the contractor in regards to that one. The little green rainbows you can see is just basically an indication of where the contractors are sitting. That's the average result they've had for the year out of 5. And if they're above 4 and they're at 5, then they're fine. They're actually complying with the KPIs and the requirements that we've put in on them. The other thing is this dashboard also randomly selects the areas that we need to inspect. So the mowing contractor does not know where we're going to be this week and looking at what jobs or what sections that we're going to be looking at. And then that's recorded. The inspectors come back, record those results straight into the dashboard, and it produces these results.
So, can I ask about that graph?
Councillor Tazza, yep.
So that table, just go back.
How do you go back? No?
No, that's forward. I think you want to go back, maybe.
Yep.
So this tells us in open session the failed sites for each contractor. And
Yeah,
how many sites they've got in total. Does that sound right?
Yep. So if you look where the red is on the screen, councillor, they're basically complying anyway.
Yeah, so proportion of the percentage non-compliant column tells you the percentage of the sites they've been allocated where they've been non-compliant.
Yeah, and that's over 12 months.
Over 12 months, yeah. So there's no mowing contractor in the city who's worse than 96% compliant.
No, they're all good.
Everyone's better than 96%.
Yep.
That's great. Awesome.
That's
a pretty good outcome. I mean, according to our records, I'm not sure members of the public would always agree with that, but
Through the chair, previously this is where we've actually made the changes to the contract to actually get that sort of result.
Yeah. Yeah.
I suppose we had one contract that we did have a few issues with, and they've turned their whole way around, and they're approved because I think the conditions and the way that we're applying them has actually forced them to actually improve their processes and systems as well. So it has worked.
So just to clarify, we've got those 4 main contractors, and then we have 2 that we have. Are they for specific sites, or are those 2 other contractors for kind of call-ups if we have a fall through?
No, the two smaller contracts look after light rail, and one contractor looks after light rail and looks after the landscaping within our zones of light rail, and the other contractor, which looks after cemeteries, and also we are looking at how we actually do the water and waste mowing within their facilities as well.
So those smaller contractors have actually got quite unique projects that they're working on that are different anyway because of the way that obviously light rail is going to be a great deal of exposure, and cemeteries require a lot more attention to detail.
Yeah, and probably a bit more planning too, so they're not there when you shouldn't be there.
I get it. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
So this graph through the chair is what we tried to do is highlight. If you have a look at the green line, it's the number of complaints that we've validated through the year. I think the worst case is around 50 or 60. If you look at the orange line, that's the number of customer inquiries or complaints we've had. So, for instance, where I mentioned the individual before that would ring up every fortnight, his would be taken as a complaint and it would be recorded, but to us it wasn't a valid complaint. So what we've tried to do is highlight where the number of inquiries or complaints we get, and then also what are the valid ones. So the difference between the green and the orange is realistically what we get during the year.
I like how everyone stopped complaining and making queries after we had a big cyclone. This is too hard.
The actual interesting thing is if you look at the blue graph, which is the rainfall data for that time, and you actually look at the orange graph, the actual complaints actually are delayed by a month depending on the rainfall.
Right.
So if you have a look at, say, March, where you had high rainfall, in April there were less complaints. If you have a look at February, where there were less complaints, in March there was, in February where you had less rainfall, in March the complaints went up. So it sort of reflects there's a sort of delay, the grass has grown, the seed head is up, so we'll ring up. And we do get a lot of complaints about seed head. So where your paspalum shoots up, the turf might be actually only at its right height, but the paspalums come up, the seed head looks ugly. We get a lot of complaints about that. So that was just a highlight. I mean, to give you further information, if I look at the period from October to May in that over the 21-22, for instance, it was probably our wettest year. We had 107 days of wet weather and 2,124 millimetres of rain. That was probably one of our biggest areas of complaints that year. But they haven't really dropped off either, because the following year we only had 57 days of wet weather with about 660 mil of rain, and we still had a high number of complaints. Some of the complaints aren't to do with wet weather either. Some are to do with dry weather. So we can have a complaint that, say in September when it's more dry and we mow, there's a bit of dust and we'll get a complaint. I've just put my washing on the line and you flick dust all over it. And then on the same token, if you don't do the mowing, you'll get the neighbour ringing saying, why haven't you mowed? So it is a balancing act of where we go and what we do. And we've worked with the contractors. If it is dusty, leave that bit and go around it as best you can. With the weed spraying, we actually spray all the weeds in the curb and channel and also on the traffic islands in the hard stand areas. Every time it's dry, the weeds tend to germinate a lot better, and when it's wet, they just sit there and grow. So we do have a number of rotations for weed spraying. For the major roads, it's 6 rotations a year. For the minor roads, it's 2 rotations a year. The contractors must abide by the Agricultural Chemical Distribution Control Act, or commonly known as the ACDC Act. All people who spray...
Councillor Neal?
Do you mind a question, Michael?
No, that's fine, Councillor.
It's just about Roundup.
Yep.
I do get several queries, and I know that several years ago I was advised by council officers that we were trying to phase it out, and I think the latest information I had was we just haven't found another product that does the job. Can you update me on the current status of using Roundup, especially in our park areas and in our public areas?
The use of glyphosate is one of our biggest complaints as well. Through you, Chair, we continue to use glyphosate because it is approved by the AVPSMA, the Australian Veterinarian Pesticide Medical Authority, which is part of CSIRO. One of the issues that came up with the use of glyphosate was a court case in America where a complainant successfully sued Monsanto and Bayer for about $200 million. They appealed that decision that was overturned. They found that the gentleman was using it incorrectly. There's a number of journals, there's a number of articles about whether glyphosate is safe or not. Glyphosate, if it hits, the way glyphosate works is we add a wetting agent. It's got a wetting agent in it. So when you spray it on the plant, what actually happens is that wetting agent absorbs the poison through the leaf and goes down and attacks the roots. That's why we use glyphosate. Where there's some others will actually kill the top of just basically kill the leaf and the stem, the roots will stay there and the weed will come back. We've looked at steam. Steam is also the same. It will actually kill the top. It won't kill the roots. So if we really want to get rid of the weed, we need to actually use something like glyphosate. We do have other chemicals for different types of weeds, but at this stage we'll still use glyphosate. It's the most effective. Basically, if glyphosate hits the ground, it becomes inert, which means it becomes neutral within a matter of seconds. So there is a lot of fear out there of glyphosate, and if you go to Bunnings, for instance, and buy a 5-litre container of Roundup, it'll cost you, I don't know, $30 or something. If you actually go and buy the actual glyphosate, you use about 5 mil per 5 litres, and it costs you about $15 for the concentrate, and you'll probably get 20 5-litre drums. But it is very small. The glyphosate use is very small compared to the water. So there's a lot of fear out there. We try and educate the public. If someone comes to us and says, I don't want glyphosate used around my house in the park, we've actually got in the system that house will not actually be sprayed. So when people put that in, we acknowledge their concerns and we take we put in the works order. So when the guys get the works order, it might say, do not spray within this section of the street. So that's the best we do at the moment. We're always looking for new products. At the moment, it's the most effective and probably the cheapest. Councillor? And our guys also have to spray within the rules of the ACDC Act. They do have to record, and that way I think we send in an annual report. Each person has to send in an annual report. Because they're certified to spray, they have to actually put in an annual report to say this is where we've sprayed and what we've sprayed. That's the sort of program we have for the spraying. As you can see, the top line is where we have six rotations during the year, and the bottom one is obviously over a longer period because there's more minor roads than major roads across the city. The challenges, wet weather days, particularly between January and June, the Gold Coast can receive over 1,000 millimetres of rain, which is about, and over the last couple of years, that's been more the case of yes than no. The only time we didn't receive over 1,000 millimetres of rain, I think, was 22-23. The rest of the time, we've received over 1,000 millimetres of rain in that period. Chemical resistance is due to the same chemical being used on the weeds. So, like humans, we sometimes get immune to a particular thing because we've used it so much. Some weeds are actually showing signs of that as well. Improvements, we're looking at now being included in the site inspection. So where there's a rotation of weed spraying, we're including that as part of the site inspections as well, rather than just letting the contractors and basically as we drive past we see, oh yeah, it's gone dead, we're right. We want to make it want to make the contractors more responsible and ensure they're doing it as they're required. We're working on looking at what chemical class is used for spraying and what other options are out there. And we're also going to trial a brush cut next year in April just to see if that is beneficial. Rather than actually just spraying, we'll try a brush cut, spray in one of the rotations and brush cut the next time. So in general, we've got a reduction in the number of portions, which has increased the contractors and increased the number of contractors, which has improved the risk allocation. Where our 3-year contract plus 1+1 is in place. At this stage, it looks, the positiveness that has come out of the new contract, I believe, is beneficial to us all.
So in relation to those contracts, there's 4 different geographic areas.
Yep.
Are they all 3+1 plus 1 coinciding, or is there a staggering of them?
Through the chair, the contract was called as one and they were all put in separable portions. And what we said when we called the contract, only one contractor per portion.
Yeah, but I want to try to work out in each of those 4 locations.
Yep.
Where we've got, it looks like we might have a different contractor given there's 4 contractors. Are they all, do those contracts coincide with one another, or did one start in 2025, one start in 2026, one started in 2026?
Through the chair, no, they all started last year, Councillor.
Okay. And so they'll also
finish at the same time.
End at the same time.
Well, through you, Chair, if they're all performing, if one's not performing, it might be that we offer the 3 and a 1+1, and we'll call a contract for the third one, the fourth one.
Oh, gotcha.
So it's based on the performance. We have enhanced performance criteria, including the customer complaints. That's a big issue that we've actually addressed and has made a lot better. The dashboard has actually improved our ability to look at things in a quick and easy manner. 13% of residents' complaints are valid. That's what that green line was basically showing in the graph. It averages about 13% of the complaints we get are valid. Weed spraying, we've just gone through that. Obviously, with the rainfall, we can spray in light rain, but we try not to because it'll dissolve the glyphosate, dilute the glyphosate even more. You only need very small amounts, so if you continually dilute it, it will be less effective. And we'll continue to actually look at using our rotations of inspections for the weed spraying as well as the mowing. Any questions?
Thank you, Michael. Apologise. I think I had down Stephen as the presenter, so I apologise at the beginning. Any more questions? Councillor Martin?
Thanks, Chair. Just the really query on 13% of valid complaints, but we talked about performance criteria is up 96%. Such a divide of perhaps some expectations and where we are, and I'm just wondering, is there anything else we can do to kind of help that service standard along, or just there's such a gap?
Through you, Chair, the complaints may not actually be to do with the quality of the mowing. It might be to do with the mower was speeding, or my child ran in front of the mower and he didn't stop in time, or we get a lot of complaints in that regard. The dust issue is an issue. So it's not necessarily the quality of mowing, that the standard of mowing that they're leaving behind. It's more, what would we say, excuse me, Dom, 50%, 60% would be more on interactions with the mowing. And that actually happens to our internal crews as well.
So that 13%, I suppose, noting all of those things, it's expected, or it's sort of par for the course given what we've got to do?
I think it's part of the course. Through you, Chair, I think it's part of the course. Look, we investigate those complaints. Whether if it's a quality one, obviously, our inspectors will go out and assess it. If it's a behavioural one from one of our contractors or one of our staff, if it's the contractor, we will inspect it. Our contractors have been very responsive. There has been a couple of serious complaints made about, a particular mower operator, and that has been reported to the contractor, and the contractor has actually removed that person from his employment because he's found to be true. It might be some of our other complaints are, the contractor hit our fence and has damaged our fence. So the contractors go out, and then 9 times out of 10 they'll fix that. So it's not necessarily the quality of the work they do, it's all things involved with it.
Thank you, Michael.
Yeah, just as a closing comment, I think in reflection, when I started at City in February last year, I think the thing I got the most calls about was mowing contract. It was a key issue. The previous contract was not working. When you get the EGM involved in mowing contracts from multiple councillors, there's obviously issues. I wanted to call out the work that Dominique did, really getting down to grassroots and talking to the people on the ground, the procurement team as well. Like this contract is a very practical balance. There's a lot of lessons learned from the previous contract, and the customer complaints, the quality of work, the way the contract's been managed and assured is a step change from where we are. So well done to the team, and only 12 months in, this is a massive shift, so very pleased.
Councillor Gates.
There's been a really distinct improvement. My complaints have just dropped away unbelievably, so to you both, thank you. The only thing I get complaints about now is one leash-free area that they always say is too wet to mow, but they mow all the parkland around it. But, that's just an anomaly, I think, and perhaps it's a little lower lying than the area around it. But thank you sincerely, because you'll recall, Michael, what a huge issue it was for me in the lead up to the 2020 election. Not the one just gone, the one before, where we'd had, it might have been this one, period of wet weathers, Coomera Springs, and there were just complaint after complaint about it. So it's really noticeable, the improvement, so thanks for your efforts.
So you're happy to move that?
Yeah, sure.
Councillor Gates, second to Councillor Tozer. Did you want?
That's my open and close.
That's your opening and close. Anyone want to speak for, against? I think it would have been the last election. I know we came into that. There was a lot of concerns. So I think we came out of that and was taken on board. So thank you to the team.
Awful Christmas storm.
Both elections.
2023 Christmas night storm, and there was a lot of water.
Yeah.
And a lot of mess. Anyway, we've recovered.
Thank you. I'll put it to you. All in favour? Carry.
Thank you, Michael. Through the Chair, can I just make a special mention to, well, Dom and I look good because of this. Brady and his partner in crime, Anthony Harris, have actually really excelled in the management of the day-to-day of it, and I think they should be recognised as well if they could. Thank you.
Well done.
Move to 7.1, electric vehicle charging management plan, 25 to 30. This is a closed session item, so we're going to close pursuant to section 254J3 of Local Government Regulations 2012. The reason, the local government budget and litigation relation commercial matter, non-local government, or which a public discussion would likely prejudice the interest of the local
to Councillor Marshall, seconder. Councillor Gates, all in favour. Streaming off. We have Stephen this time. Presenting, is it? All we'll do this time is to hold questions. We'll get the presentation out the way and take your Streaming on. Welcome back, everyone. We had 2 items in closed session. The first one was EV charging management plan. We've got a mover. We've got on the screen the recommendations. Got a mover, Councillor Tozer. Secondly, Councillor Marshall. Still, Councillor Tozer, would you like to speak?
Yeah. Look, the piece we discussed today relates to electric vehicle charging in the city, and it's in the public domain that the council has been has delivered with a previous partner a series of electronic charging stations, none of which are currently operable anymore as a result of some changes in the marketplace, and we need to make a plan. It is anticipated that between now and 2030 we'll move to about 25% of our fleet being electric vehicles, and so there's a body of this work that needs to be done in relation to managing our own electric vehicles, but also the take-up in the marketplace has been so profound that it makes sense for council to look at these sort of charging stations in key locations that make sense for us. And it's important for the public to also know that as a result of this trial that we've undertaken up to this point, council's in the black. So we're, without going into all the specific details, we've covered our cost and had a little bit money left over. But there's no doubt that with the market issues with some service providers, we need to come up with a plan to be able to do this again. And this electric vehicle charging management plan will hopefully help us do that.
Thank you. Anyone want to speak for? Anyone against? Put the motion to you. All in favour? Carry. 7.2, significant contracting plan professional services partner for infrastructure. Councillor Tozer, I think you're going to move it. I've got a seconder, Councillor O'Neill. Councillor Tozer?
Yeah, just for those who are watching, this resolution relates to our aspiration as a city to do a better job of continually increasing our capital program each year. Our capital program is getting to a point where we need to think of a more holistic and comprehensive way to deal with some of the big contracts we're dealing with. In order to do that, we require some professional services partners to help us with that, or in fact a professional services partner. And so this significant contracting plan relates to that. Tenderers, expressions of interest were, explored, and we identified a number of tenderers, and we'll move to the next steps after council resolve next Tuesday.
Anyone speak for? Councillor Hamel?
Mr. Chair, only to add on what Councillor Tozer said, that I'd acknowledge that this is a fairly important milestone in a longer journey that we're going through with our CapEx program, one that when our EGM, Mr. Kaler, came on board and Mr. Vaughan took into his position as General Manager, we've been taken on this journey, and this was always going to be one of those big critical milestones in this. So just to acknowledge that to the EGM and Mr. Vaughan and their teams, that this is a big step and a critical one in that longer term journey of us delivering our CapEx program for the city in the future. So great work, team, and happy to support it.
Anyone against? So no closing. Put the motion to you. All in favour? Carry. Thank you. Any general business? We'll close the meeting at 15:17. Thank you, everyone.